Well, the public broadcaster aims to empower and inform the nation on events and developments that are influential over citizens' lives. Community broadcasters and media producers are well positioned to communicate stories that touch every moment of an audience's lived experience. Now, the community radio and television stations have long been grappling with financing and resources to fuel their mandate. The CEO of the Media Development and Diversity Agency, Shoeshoe Qhu, joins us now for more. Shoeshoe, very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Simphiwe, and good evening to your viewers.
Now, first of all, Shoeshoe, the public broadcaster says it aims to empower and inform the nation, but this mission certainly cannot be fulfilled without a strong community media sector. So what is the MDDA doing to ensure community broadcasters are not the forgotten arm of this national agenda?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it's very important that we center community media, both the publishers as well as the broadcasters, those being radio and television, in the hearts of our various communities. The Constitution of South Africa gives guarantees to freedom of expression, access to information, and without media, not just community media, we wouldn't be able to bring to life these constitutional guarantees that come from Chapter 2. And I think what makes community media well placed is because they're based in communities. You have a radio station that is broadcasting from in the rural village, for example, of Umzimkhulu, that being Herigwala FM. It broadcasts not just in one of the few or three of the languages that are recognized by the Constitution, but they also have indigenous languages that are used in that area. The language often used is one that's accessible to communities and is reachable. And I think if you think about it, if something needed to be said somewhere, communities could easily run into those community radio stations to be able to share their views, and so that they too are able to be heard. But I think for a long time, since their establishment, community media has really played a pivotal role, I would say, in being a feeder into your commercial broadcast stations. There's many broadcasters that are on the SABC, the likes of Sakina Kamwendo, whose journey started at a community radio station. So I think the role that the sector plays is very key, not just in the transmission of sharing of information, but also as training ground to then help young people to gain the skills and possibly grow into the media industry. So I think it is while complementary, but in the context of South Africa, where we have the three-tier broadcasting layer, where you have, yes, the public broadcaster, the commercial broadcaster, and community radio, we cannot overstate its importance or even underestimate it, particularly when we look at how it is able to bring communities together and encourage that level of cohesion and bringing issues that affect people to the fore.
You're quite right there, Shoeshoe. I mean, community broadcasters are the effective and effectual feeder to the mainstream commercial, broadcasters. And you and I will agree that community broadcasters are very close to people's lived realities. But then in your view, Shoeshoe, why is this sector so critical to South Africa's democracy, particularly in the underreported rural, the township and peri-urban areas?
I think the reality in South Africa is that we are seeing a shift to more online media. And I think for a long time, media is housed in Johannesburg. I'm sure many would dream of coming to Auckland Park,
right,
because that is seen as the center of where the media is and the source to disseminate information. But for a child who's out in the rural Eastern Cape, in the rural Limpopo, where Auckland Park is too far, for example, the community media becomes that place. I think you will see in the formation of community media establishments that they are driven often by community members. For the broadcasters, majority of them are NGOs or NPOs rather, or community-based organizations. And so you'll see that a number of key stakeholders within those communities would have identified a need to ensure that they have a media platform in which people within those communities are able to access or get information. But we also see a number of community radio stations that also focus on community of interest. These could be religious institutions. I think it is in the diversity of community broadcasters in this country that we see why communities still believe that it's important. There's over 200 community radio stations as gazetted by ICASA at the end of the financial year. Now, this does come with a lot of challenges in terms of sustainability, both for the broadcasters as well as the publishers, I must add, in that these projects highly rely on self-sufficiency. So they must be able to make enough to be able to cover all of their operational costs and sometimes even invest in the studio equipment that's required. Now, studio equipment is a massive investment for any media house, including for community media. And I think this is the role that the MDDA also looks to play meaningfully, is by encouraging and supporting community media to ensure that they are sustainable. And I think we've had a number of interventions over the past 20...
Yeah, apologies for interrupting, but still on the point of self-sustainability and sustainability of the broadcasters and the diversity of the broadcasters, how does the MDDA then strike a balance between funding media diversity and ensuring quality, ethical and sustainable journalism, especially at the grassroots level?
Yeah, and that's very true. We do know that misinformation and disinformation is one of the key challenges that we are battling with. Yeah. While the need for access to information remains pivotal and is important, I think it's also important to emphasize that that information has to be credible. And so what the interventions that we've been having as the entity to support community media is capacity building initiatives. As we build towards the local government elections, we've also seen that there's a gap for us to reinforce training for targeting community media practitioners to prepare them ahead of the elections. And the agency is looking for partners to assist us in delivering this training so that we deal specifically with that issue of ensuring that community media practitioners are able to deliver the best quality work. The challenge is often that once the journalists that are at community media are trained, they would often leave to a more mainstream or even other areas of careers in terms of growth. So the interventions that the MDDA makes have to be continuous. So we are continuously training community media journalists with the relevant skills to be able to deliver content and information. I must say that because of constrained and limited resources, it remains challenging for us to get to where we need to get to reach as many of those community media practitioners as we need to. However, I do want to say that in the past 20 years of the agency's existence, we have provided support to at least over 500 community media, including the practitioners, with skills and capacity building, but also supported them through studio equipment that we would have, the agency would have invested.
Okay, sure, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Simpiwe. I do want to make just one last call to say that briefly, the MDDA's call for funding is closing tomorrow on the 1st of August. So all of the community organizations that already operate and have licenses, please go to mdda.org.za to be able to get all of the information and details. Thank you.
Thanks for making that point. It's an absolute pleasure joining us, Shoeshoe. Thank you. All right, Shoeshoe Qhu is the CEO of Media Development and Diversity Agency, talking to us about the MDDA's call to fund community-based broadcast initiatives.